Hey there. This is the final lecture on the regulation of herbs in the marketplace, and our focus here is going to be on the clinical practitioner side of things. So really, this whole world of herbal medicine has been a consumer-driven revival. Now, almost 50% of U.S. consumers want alternative care. Herbal supplement industry, $65 billion and climbing. Licensing exists for acupuncturists, naturopaths, nutritionists, and wellness counselors, but not for herbalists. And we'll get into that a little bit. So what would it look like for an herbalist to be recognized as a health practitioner? And by this I mean recognized in a formal regulatory manner. It needs to be legal recognition, and legal recognition also maintaining consumer access and providing the means to for consumers to have confidence in practitioners. So the herbal alternative marketplace today, obviously increasing use, increasing visibility, there's increasing research, and in some ways we're being limited by legal issues that originated 100 years ago. I think this got spoken of when we talked about the history of herbal medicine and how that occurred. But they're important to question the history of herbal medicine to uncover the bones of how decisions got made. So there was a difference, obviously, between the practitioners that were considered herbalists versus doctors early in the U.S. There was a commission held that showed that MDs were the arena to invest in. They got licensed. Now herbalists come around, and this is reemergences in the 60s. And really, if you look at the American Herbalist Guild, which is sort of the standard today, a lot of the original herbalists that helped bring this about as a whole decided they did not want licensure for a number of reasons. Licensure, in some ways, was antithetical to what they said was the people's medicine, that this should be freely available. These are plants in the woods, and someone's knowledge of how to use them for healing. This is something that shouldn't be regulated. Additionally, once you have licensure, it tends to increase costs. And so therefore you limit access on the marketplace to this medicine. And we know there's huge disenfranchisement. Boy, that's a tough one. You know what I'm trying to say. Disenfranchisement from access to medical treatment based on racial and economic issues in this country. So herbalists as a whole said, no, we don't want that. We don't want that model. So consumers have said, when we go to the allopathic physicians, we're not happy with our treatment, the results of those treatments. And also I think there's an underlying recognition that a lot of allopathic approaches are tools for acute treatment for what are underlying chronic conditions. So people want effective treatment for those chronic diseases. They want access to worldwide health information, how other cultures have treated. They want individualized therapy, something that focuses on them as unique human, not as some disease signature. And they want people that will help them promote their own empowerment to take care of themselves and to participate in that healing process. Because we know now, with the data that we've been able to collect, that self-empowerment and participation in that healing process is at times as powerful, if not more, than whatever the treatment modality. And people were getting tired of adverse effects. So there was an attempt to minimize that, lower costs, and to shift the paradigm from disease to wellness, to human resilience, and what could be done to rebuild that. So what federal protections exist for humans to be able to make those choices? Us as consumers, what works in our stead to say, we want to be able to choose, because the AMA is a very powerful political tool. and they've had tremendous impact on what's going to get offered. So there's had to have been a real fight on the consumer's side to say, no, we want access to these other modalities. So in general, the Bill of Rights protects citizens from federal encroachment. But the courts have not agreed that we have a constitutional right to medical care of our choice yet. We see that played out in any number of ways. Everything from the right to choose euthanasia, death at some point, to the ongoing struggles for female control of their own bodies. So this is, it's not a shut and closed case in any means. So the 14th Amendment is a fertile ground because it focuses on privacy rights. That translates to autonomous decision-making about our own health care. So this is where the big legal battles are being fought. But really, states regulate medicine. They regulate the practice of medicine. So in 1888 in Maryland, they licensed only graduates of medical schools or those passing the licensing exam. Before that, you had herbalists that were considered doctors, as were the regulars, the ones that believed in a certain medical practice of allopathy. So today's specific definition is based on licensing by a board of physicians or health professionals. And there are several licensed practitioners that are allowed to practice herbal medicine who aren't herbalists necessarily. Those are naturopaths, chiropractors, acupuncturists, and physicians, because they have a licensing body in each state that provides them that access. There have been other attempts to try to regulate. These are called the health freedom laws. And this is there to protect alternative and complementary medicine, including herbalists. And it basically says that these practitioners don't conduct clearly medical practices such as surgery, that they don't harm, they don't pretend to be a physician or license, and they disclose their education, their training, and services to the clientele. These have not been passed in the larger D.C. area, Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, but they have been passed in other states, and you can see the listing of the states and when they were passed. Maryland did try to pass something in the recent past 2 years, but it did not actually get to a vote. But these health freedom bills tend to protect consumers. They eliminate prosecution for practicing without a license. And the paradigm shift is away from the supremacy of physician expertise in control of healthcare choices. And this is really around the patients being responsible for their own wellness. So it's not illegal to practice herbal medicine. We're just not licensed. So in terms of how do you go about protecting yourself, there's the language around practice. We don't treat, we don't diagnose. Instead, we assess physiological function rather than diagnose pathophysiological conditions. They're clients, they're not our patients. We are health or wellness educators. We support their efforts to become well. So the focus is on prevention and promoting and maintaining wellness. There's also something called informed consent. This is a full disclosure. And that is, what services can you provide? What's the background on your training and expertise? And certainly this is where being able to speak to having a degree that is recognized in the marketplace really helps strengthen your ability to have that conversation. The roles and responsibility in the practitioner-client relationship. And here really I think it's important to be explicit about the fact that you do expect the individual to actually take care of their own health. And that this does not take the place of appropriate medical care. So California's got some provisions that really I think are a good model. And this is what I think emerging practitioners should focus on. And that is, a practitioner, herbal practitioner, is not a licensed physician. The therapy is an alternative. You are explicit about the services provided or not licensed by the state. The description of the nature of services that are going to be provided. The theory of treatment upon which therapies are based. So this is something that you could have in discussion with a client. your educational background and experience regarding the services you're going to provide, and then obtaining a written acknowledgement from the client that they have been provided with all this information. So I'll leave it there. And you can see that on the client side, far less actual defined roles. There is the American Herbalist Guild, and you can become a registered herbalist with that guild. That registration isn't a license. It's an acknowledgement of your educational level and number of clinical hours, and so it designates an herbalist with a pretty high-level skill set and experience. But beyond that, really it's your relationship with other practitioners, with your clients, that really defines your own success. So these are two of my spiritual guides, Bubba Sonny Bear on the left and Trip Gibson on the right. And I'll leave you with their images and wish you the best of luck.